Welcome to Creative Corner with Denise. I'll be with you until 8 o'clock tonight, and of course it's the first Thursday of the month again, so it'll be Jackie with Book Chat, and we've got a guest in the studio tonight as well, so we've got lots to talk about to do in the world with books. So we'll get started with some music, and you're listening to Creative Corner with Denise on 88.9 Win FM. Welcome to Creative Corner, and that was Paul Kelly with Dumb Things. And you're listening to 88.9, and welcome, Jackie.
Hi, Denise.
Again, another book chat's come around.
I know, we're nearly halfway through the year.
We are. And the last time we met, although you weren't on air, was when we had the OB at the store a couple of weeks ago, which went very well.
Yes.
And, of course, we are now streaming, so this is our first book chat that's going out to the world. So hello to everybody out there.
I know, it's very exciting. It's a bit daunting, but exciting at the same time.
Absolutely. And if you are listening to Book Chat outside of Australia, or even outside the local area, send us an email at talkonfriday@hotmail.com. That's talkonfriday@hotmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, and give us your ideas about the sorts of things you'd like to hear about in Book Chat. We try and do different themes each month. But basically the idea is to have an hour to sit back and talk about the world of books.
Absolutely. And as you say, we love to get feedback from our listeners, so send us an email. Absolutely. Now, we're having a guest in the studio today, Jackie. Introduce Hilary to our listeners.
Yes, today I thought we'd delve into the world of what we call manga and graphic novels, which has starting to become a really big area.
Now, Jack, before you go on, explain what that is, because I didn't know. Well, so some of our listeners might not.
Well, part of the reason I've invited Hilary is that she will actually explain.
Oh, terrific.
But it's basically... the way I try to explain it to people when they come into the store is that, it's the new comics, really.
Okay.
Attracts very much young adults, and probably I would say predominantly boys, but it's not exclusive to boys. But that's part of Hilary's job today, is to take us into the world.
Absolutely.
It's very specialised, and a lot of my staff at the store, we're learning from the people who want it. They're educating us, and from people like Hilary, who's provides us with some expertise. So Hilary's here.
So let's introduce Hilary, Jackie.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
What's Hilary's full name for all our listeners?
Hilary, I was going to try and stay mysterious.
Is it Pastrovich?
Pastovich, yeah.
Yeah, pretty close.
Well done.
I was trying to avoid having to say it, to be honest.
Well, of course I didn't say it, because I'm terrible with surnames.
So welcome to Book Chat, Hilary.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the time to come out and talk to us about a very exciting area in books.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to be here. Normally when there's a book chat about graphic novels, they go for the really literary ones, and the I can't even describe them, but like the more famous ones, nobody really pays attention to manga, so I'm very excited to be here.
Fantastic. Well, I'm excited because I don't know what you're talking about at the moment.
Just wait until I start throwing out Japanese terminology.
Yeah, no, there's a whole. I did do some Googling about this before Hilary came along, and it is a new world, and that's why I thought this is not a topic that I can come and talk to on my own. I really needed someone who knows it inside out, and Hilary's the girl. So
fantastic.
So we look forward to the end of the show when we will enlighten Denise
and our listeners.
And you two will be experts as well.
Excellent. So what are you going to ask Jackie? Jackie, what are you going to ask Hilary specifically?
Well, we're going to look at things like, firstly, we're going to define what manga is, or as Hilary puts it, manga.
Yes.
Okay, Hilary, I'll ask you, what is manga?
Well, first I'd like to point out that I'm not just being presumptuous about it. It is the reason why I pronounce it manga. There's been a really big movement in the US to call it manga. That's actually the Japanese pronunciation.
Ah, okay. So it's a Japanese term then?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And we've had plenty of store owners, and I myself have been corrected by a 9-year-old girl when I was presenting for a library in Tasmania. Just stood up and said, it's actually pronounced manga. I hadn't even said the word yet. I'm like, yes, it is. Yes, it is a Japanese term. Manga essentially started in Japan around the 40s. It's considered to have started there with a gentleman named Osamu Tezuka, with things like Astro Boy, which I think most people have seen on the TV.
Absolutely. I remember watching Astro Boy when I was a little girl. Actually, it was one of my favourite cartoons.
There you go. Before they did the terrible remake.
Oh, this was the original.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, so anime would be the version that you watched on TV. Manga would be the book version.
Now, one thing that I was very into as a kid was comics. I loved comics. So it's something along the line of comics, is it? Or
It's exactly that. Manga actually means whimsical or humorous pictures in Japanese. It's just a sequential art form. It's a way to tell stories through a visual medium. So it's pictures and images as well as words. The difference between manga and the comics that we're used to seeing is that manga, first of all, reads right to left, because it is coming over from Japan, where they read right to left.
Oh, really?
It's typically in black and white, not in color. They have a specific sort of art style that features big eyes and spiky hair, which makes it pretty recognizable. Astro Boy, exactly.
So is it also known as Japimation? Is that what we relate to when we're talking, or is that something else again?
I honestly have no idea. Japanimation, I believe, is the name of a company. I don't think it's an actual movement, or maybe they tried to make it a movement with their brand or something along that.
We don't want to talk about them then if it's a company.
I'm not sure. Of course, it could be a term, and I'm just completely showing my ignorance there. I'm not sure.
So it's not really a term used in the manga.
Well, the Australians say manga, but it's now we've been corrected.
Yeah. Well, I think the movement really comes from the fans, and that the fans are just so dedicated to this category. So if they want to call it manga, and if a lot of them will really get into Japanese pop culture and start learning the language, and that's really when they'll start telling people, no, it's manga. Right now, manga seems to be just fine.
Okay.
And if you say manga, some people will look at you funny because they have no idea what you're trying to say. I blame it on my funny accent. But yes, the hardcore fans will correct you. Apparently, it's also supposed to be anime, not anime, but...
Oh, so you were saying it's a little bit like a comic, but it's a book. So... Again, with the traditional comics, they were usually quite thin, and they were about A4 size, but they were quite thin. Now, are these more like a book?
These are, and they're serialized. So if you put them all together, they would make one of the longest books in history. The manga typically, when they're originally published in Japan, they're published one chapter at a time in a magazine that's about the size of a phone book, and it's one chapter of several different series. And people will pick them up and take them on the train and just sort of read them and dump them. Then if there's a series that's particularly popular, maybe that's the reason why people are buying that particular magazine, they'll start publishing them as the individual volumes of manga, which is what you'll find in bookstores here. And those are usually like a traditional novel size.
Okay.
So it's the same sort of...
It's got a cover. It's got like a fairly durable cover, hasn't it? It's the sort of it would be the sort of thing that you would buy and want to keep. It's not it doesn't look like a disposable comic-y.
Yes.
Like what I would have had when I was younger. It's the price point is about $12.95, so it's a reasonable price point as well. It's not something you'd want to like you're picking up a magazine from the newsagent for $5 that you don't mind leaving behind somewhere. But very much a lot of the people who are reading manga and buying it are very intent on starting from the beginning and continuing it on. It's a real collector's.
I was going to ask, is there a particular age group? Is it particularly in Japan where it's originated? We'll talk about it first. Is it across all age groups, or is there a particular age group it's popular with?
Absolutely. Because it's been so well established in Japan, almost half of their publishing is done in this format. So you can find something for every age group, every genre, fiction, non-fiction. There are cookbooks, there are how-to books, there are biographies, and then you have every genre of fiction, kids books, and adult content as well. So it covers the gamut of everything possible in books.
There's also vampires.
Vampires are everywhere.
Yes. and there's romance for the girls.
Mm-hmm.
So there's specific titles that girls will come looking for, and then there's other titles that pretty much only boys read, like Hellsing and
More with the vampires.
They're more popular with the boys.
Well, it depends.
Depends if it's a vampire romance, I guess.
Exactly, or if it's more of a vampire hunter kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, there's actually terminology in Japan for the genres, I guess is the closest word to describe it. So there's shoujo, which just means something that's written for girls. So that's usually your romantic comedies. And then there's shonen, which is more those action-adventure type series for the boys.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were saying about they can be in the form of a biography. Does that mean that there was a book, like a traditional book written in a biography or a story, and then it's been turned into this form?
No, it's usually the author / artist, because many times it'll be the same person. That's actually the way they tell their story. So it's not something that would be written as a novel first and then converted. In fact, there's been quite a few cases where there have been a manga series that people have then gone, that's a really good series, I'm going to do a novel, and condense it that way.
Okay.
Or most anime, most of the television shows are based on what was originally a manga. So manga is usually the source material for a lot of that.
Oh, okay.
Now, something I wanted to speak to Hilary on later, probably after the break, is to talk about the differences between manga and graphic novels, because what we find with graphic novels actually happens the other way. So what we're finding with and I suspect what's happening is publishers and authors out there have noticed the attention that manga's getting and have decided, we should really convert this traditional novel into a manga style.
Yes. That's probably what I was thinking.
Yeah, so I'm thinking my marketing brain's kicking in now. I'm sort of trying to think of where they're coming from, but I'm seeing things like the Percy Jackson collection, for example, which is a traditional novel for young adults, and now we're starting to see the graphic novel format coming out. Or we had Twilight, which came out originally as a novel, and now the graphic novels are following suit. So
I think you're exactly right. I think that really stemmed from publishers noticing how incredibly successful manga is, and how popular and how strong of a reach it had to that young adult audience. So not only has it been stories, like you can find Shakespeare in all sorts of manga formats now, but it's also been more of the mainstream authors who I think self-proclaim that they're not artists, so they'll work with manga artists to usually it's a side story or a prequel or a sequel, so it's not a direct conversion of their other works. But, for example, Dean Koontz' Odd Thomas series, there are, and it's an Australian artist, by the way, I'm just going to throw that out there. They've created more stories in the Odd Thomas world, but they were developed as, I would even call them a manga. So, or it could be a graphic novel, but it's still done in that style, that black and white sequential art style. So.
Okay. Well, we might take a break and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about this new form. Well, it's new to me. We'll talk about how long it's been around when we come back. You're listening to Book Chat on 88.9 Win FM, which is brought to you by the Collins Bookstore at the Werribee Plaza, a proud sponsor of 88.9 Win FM.